What's up, Barnhill family, and welcome back to the channel.
Yo.
So, Nick, Israel Adesanya, Jared Cannonier. Jared really didn't have much for Adesanya. Not the most exciting competitive fight we've ever seen, but I personally think it was a good technical masterclass put on by Israel last night.
Yeah, he looked good, and Israel has done so much to give us highlights and give us great moments inside the octagon. He's at a point now where he's the champ. He's recycled the division maybe a couple of times. He's looking to get new fighters in there as often as he can. But he's got to do what he's got to do to win. It's not his fault when people don't really want to play ball with him. If you want to go crazy and start trading with him, he'll engage in that, and he will usually win that via knockout. Jared Cannonier wasn't really looking to pull the trigger much last night, and in my opinion, and no disrespect towards Jared Cannonier, I like the guy a lot, but it seemed to me like he was content with being there. It seemed to me like he was okay with finishing the fight.
Yeah.
When you see him walking into the corner for the fifth and final round, right before the fifth, and he's giving the shakas, and he's, sticking his tongue out, smiling to his team, I'm like, you're down like 4 rounds, dude, right now. I think you really need to start pushing it. If you want to win this belt, this is what you're here for. You might not get another opportunity like this. You're a little bit older. And to me, it just seemed like he didn't really have that championship mentality, that ability to take the belt from somebody as dominant as Izzy. And it wasn't his night, but I don't think any credit should be taken away from Izzy for just doing what he has to do to get his hand raised.
I totally agree with that. And I think Jared was kind of swallowed up by the moment. Israel had one of the coolest walkouts that I've ever seen. I mean, talk about the Undertaker's music with that hat on and an urn with Jared's name on it. This is why we love Adesanya, right? He does have really compelling skills. I think he's the quickest, most accurate, cerebral fighter that we have in the UFC right now, and probably that we've had since Anderson Silva, honestly. I think Israel Adesanya is this generation's Anderson Silva with the way he moves, strikes. Now, I get people will criticize me and push back on that and say, hey, Anderson finished 10 of his 11 title defenses or 9 of his 11 title defenses or something, and Izzy's not really finishing people anymore like how we used to. Okay, fine, you got me there. But as far as striking skill goes and ability and just natural talent to read, bait, feint, and land, I don't think anybody else is matching that right now. And the speed and skill differential between him and Jared, I knew there would be one. I didn't realize it would be as pronounced as we saw last night.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely looked like he was operating at a different frequency than Jared. Jared just was kind of there. He did a decent job of striking with Israel. And if you go back and look at the stats, and I know they don't really judge based off of stats, but there was one round where he actually landed more strikes than Izzy, and none of them were very significant as far as optics go. You'd have to ask Izzy if any of them actually hurt him, but it looked like Izzy got out of there relatively unscathed.
Yeah.
And I did say in the preview to this fight that I thought that he would be durable because he came from heavyweight, he went to 205, now he's down here, and he probably has that same power and strength and durability that he had at heavyweight down at 185. But it just seemed to me like he was a step behind. He wasn't really there to go steal the belt. He was there to, give it his best shot. And I don't know. For me, I thought Israel did what he had to do to win. There's nights where you can go out there and create highlights, like next level highlights, like he's done many times. And you can even do that in title fights. He's done it in title fights. But when you've got a guy like Jared Cannonier who is powerful, who is durable, and you assume is going to go all 25 minutes with you, you got to fight a smart fight. And I don't think anybody who critiques Israel Adesanya for not finishing fights would go out there against the killer gorilla with reckless abandon and just try to go knock him out and go shot for shot with him, because you could wind up face down on the mat and handing your belt over.
That's for sure. And perhaps more exciting than the fight itself last night is what's coming next.
Yes.
Because I don't think he's going to have an option as far as whether or not he bangs in his next fight, because Alex Pereira, while he is an old foe, it's going to be a new competition, meaning it's going to take place inside of an octagon and not inside of a kickboxing ring. And this is somebody who has, and it's funny, we were talking about it last night before the Jared Cannonier-Adesanya fight happened. Izzy's kind of in a unique place because we saw earlier in the evening what happened with Pereira and Strickland, and Alex just made that look easy. I mean, Strickland is known for his durability. A lot of people hate the guy. You'll never criticize his durability. I mean, you see some of the gym wars he gets into. You see some of the stuff he's done inside the octagon. octagon to just put his lights out like that, like Pereira did, shows a tremendous amount of power that Alex has. And I don't think that we can take away anything from Alex with that performance last night. But the interesting part of what I was saying that Izzy is facing tonight is that he just watched that happen with Alex knocking Sean out, and now he knows that he's got to get in there with Jared Cannonier. And so he can kind of devise the understanding that if I lose to Jared Cannonier, my next fight's going to be against Jared Cannonier for a rematch. If I win this fight, my next fight's against Alex Pereira. So I'm the champ, but at the same time, the next person I fight is going to be somebody that has beaten me before. So it's kind of a unique place to be, but he's not shying away from the challenge. The champ almost never calls people out. He got on the mic, kept it short, kept it quick with Joe Rogan last night, said Pereira's next, and I'm going to show him how it's done inside of the octagon.
Yeah, and I love that. And there's a lot on this. I think Pereira looked fantastic.
Yeah.
And if you ask me stylistically, after we've seen Izzy in there with the best of the best wrestlers, the best of the best jiu-jitsu guys, the best strikers that MMA has to offer, I'm left to think that the only person that's going to give him a tough time is somebody who has his same level of skill in the striking realm, in the kickboxing range particularly, and that's Pereira. And I think that the UFC is actually very brilliant for finding this guy and bringing him in to challenge for the belt. And I know they, had to fast track him a bit. He's only 6-1, 7-1 as a MMA fighter, but it almost feels like a story if you look at some of those and I know Izzy's a big anime guy, but you find this guy and he's like a diamond in the rough and he becomes the world champion. He's the best in the world. And then people start to dig into his past and they go, wait a second, there's a guy on this planet that has beaten him twice. He's never got his hand raised against him, and he even knocked him out once. And the UFC does whatever they have to do. They sign whatever contract they have to sign with this guy. They go find him. Where he could be in Brazil, in the Amazon. He could be
up in the mountains of Dagestan.
Yeah, who knows where he is? He could be in Thailand doing kickboxing and Muay Thai stuff. They go find him. They sign him. They fast track him because they say, you've beaten our best guy. We got to see if we actually have the best guy in the world at this division. Fast track him, and I feel like it's a really great story. And honestly, this is going to be Izzy's one of his toughest matchups as the champion, in my opinion, because Pereira has some serious power. He clearly knows what he's doing at that kickboxing range, and Izzy's lost to him a couple times. And if you've done fighting and sparring, whatever you've done as far as combat sports goes, if there's a guy in the gym that's beaten you, if there's a guy in competition that's beaten you, and time again you go in there and you can't get your hand raised, there's a little bit of a feeling that goes within you, and you just can't quite shake it.
Yeah, and Israel Adesanya has just dominated everybody that he's fought inside of the UFC, and then he's recycled those people, and he walks with an air of confidence that's truly unmatched. As you said, he's one of the best champions the UFC has. He's certainly the most dominant 185er since Anderson Silva, and so it'll be really interesting to see him walk out for a fight where he is the A-side. He's the champion. He's going to have his name written in gold on his shorts, but as you said, he's going to be standing across from a guy who's almost a folklore legend. It's like, you think your guy, and as the UFC, the premier organization, you have the best people in the world. Well, I got this guy that he just came into your organization, and he beat you twice already, and he's looking to make it a third time. And I think that this just makes for, matchmaking is storytelling. And I think the Sean Shelby and the matchmakers deserve a lot of credit here because they wanted to get to that story ultimately. And it's like Vince McMahon saying when he passed on buying the UFC, you can't control the narrative, so you can't build a star. I would disagree with McMahon respectfully on that point because you can do certain things that create opportunities to create storylines that are even better than ones you could script, meaning give a guy like Alex Pereira a really damn tough fighter and a big name like Sean Strickland, but a matchup that you just think might be favorable to your guy that you want to put in there next. And what do you get? You get a beautiful storyline that's going to make for a killer pay-per-view and an awesome fight. I don't think Izzy's getting out of this one with jabs and leg kicks. I think Israel's going to have to really fight if he wants to beat him.
Yeah, and I think Pereira versus Izzy is one of those fights that when it comes to fruition, it actually happens. If you have friends or family members that aren't really into MMA, show them that one because I think this fight's going to live up to the expectations. I think it's going to be fire. fireworks. Izzy's going to want to finish this guy and put an end to the Pereira chapter in his martial arts career. But who knows? We might see them go at it time and time again like Volk and Max did in MMA.
Who knows? I just really can't wait for that fight.
Me either.
Guys, drop us a comment. Let us know, what do you think about Alex Pereira versus Adesanya, the rematch, but this time inside the octagon. If you haven't already, a subscribe to the channel is much appreciated, and a like helps us out with that YouTube algorithm. We'll see you in the next one.
Peace.